100%,
Full house.
and that's wonderful. This is the October the 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Arkansas Financial Education Commission. With seeing that quorum, I call the meeting to order. You were provided a copy of the minutes of the last meeting, and I don't remember the last meeting.
June. That was June 11th.
The June 11th meeting minutes are before you. Does anyone have any corrections that they see needs to be considered? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Okay.
Got a motion, and do we have a second? Marcia, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. All right, very good. Well, we're going to go right into the reports. The first one will be our outreach with Graham Jansen. We've had a lot of work going on with you since we met last, and I think you're going to be very pleased with the results and where we stand. So, Graham,
Right.
I'd like for you to start, and we have a few others to jump in too.
Yes. So before we get into the outreach that he's referring to, just a few kind of interesting little nuggets of information. And I'm only kind of sharing these because it really illustrates how much people, especially corporations, are looking for financial education for their employers. As most of you know, Chris and I also wear the 529 hat, so we enable. So oftentimes we're talking to HR directors about incorporating the 529 and the ABLE plan into their benefits package. And recently we were talking with the HR team at ArcBest. And I don't know, I didn't mean to do it, but somehow I came up with, I mentioned that, what the Financial Education Commission is doing. And all of a sudden, I mean, the whole conversation just went to that. And he was like, and I said, we're in the developmental stages. We're in the process of putting together some resources, maybe, curriculum. I really don't know at this point. And he's like, well, we're going to go ahead. So we've got our appointments set up to talk about 529. But they said, as soon as you have something, we want to schedule a time for you to come back and talk to our employees. So, unsolicited. I mean, that was very encouraging. And then another, we visited with the superintendent of the Poen School District, and she is the same thing. I mean, she wants not only for us to come talk to the school district, to the teachers and the staff, but anything that we have developed for the families, she'd like us to come back and present. So anyway. So with that, I'm going to segue into what the treasurer was referring to. As many of you know, we kind of took our show on the road. We didn't get concert T-shirts like maybe we should have with all the cities we visited.
Well, got a lot of coffee cups. So.
Yes, yes. No, we had, and Heather, I believe, came up with the name Talk with the Treasurer Tour. So between February and June, we, meaning Larry, Heather, and I, and in some cases other members of our staff, traveled to 8 different cities around the state, and we purposely selected ones that represented kind of different socioeconomic, factors. And just for reference, the cities we visited were Bryant, Greenbrier, Pine Bluff, Warren, Helena, Desert, Bismarck, and Magnolia. And we met just incredible people. I mean, as you can imagine, especially in Helena. And how the days were formed is we would typically meet in the mornings with community leaders, business leaders, church leaders, and people who weren't maybe leaders, but were very entrenched in the community and could really speak to what was, happening in these communities. So we had roundtable discussions with them. The treasurer had kind of a series of questions and prompts, kind of getting a sense of what their take was on the financial climate or the economic climate, and how people in their community, the personal finance, tools that they use and what's lacking. And then in the afternoons, we would have similar conversations, but with either high school or college students. So this is where Marcia really helped us, because there were a lot of the high schools, of course, she's a rock star there. So it was very eye-opening, and I think you would agree that what the adults said in the morning, kids today just don't know how to write a check, and the kids we'd meet in the afternoons were like, well, we don't need to know how to write a check, So if we left each visit with just a lot of information. So what we did, and this is in your packet, and I'm not going to go through, but if you should be interested, I included in your packets today, it's entitled City Tour Notes. And so I kind of went through, or we consolidated kind of the highlights of what some of the comments were each city. And I have them broken down by whether it was the adult leader group or it was the kids. So that's for your reference. But so we formed, I think some of you will remember this, that we formed kind of a small working group to collect and look at all this information, and then be able to come back to you all with some recommendations on how we should, what perhaps our next steps should be. So that's the point that we're at today.
And
Oh, yes.
we also, after the talk with the treasurer tour concluded, we also invited a group, a member or two from each community that visited, to come right here in this room and have sort of a small focus group roundtable to kind of discuss some of the options and ideas that we're going to talk to you about today. And so that was an incredible day.
That was great.
It was, it was so good. I can't even express how good it was. And they were so appreciative to be invited here and to have input.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a nugget that I think we got right.
Right. Well, and it was, these are the people that contributed and shaped what we're doing. And the same people that whatever is decided to move forward with have agreed to help us and want us to come back to their communities when we're ready to roll it out. So it's just been, there have been so many benefits beyond what, this was designed to do that came out of that. The other page is the general consensus conclusions. So are the general consensus conclusions. So what that represents is, as the name implies, kind of a common thread from each of the cities, and really no great surprises. A few interesting takeaways, but again, I'm not going to read all of them, but that kids and adults alike respond well to apps that encourage savings by using incentives. How critical technology is to accessing financial education information. This was a huge one that we heard from the college and high school students, is that most schools are already, introducing the idea of financial basics, but they need to do it even younger because and really build upon, as the kids get older, make the topics more, applicable to that age group. Of course, many people, especially in some of these rural communities, they learn about their finances from their church leaders. Many mentioned the Dave Ramsey course. An idea came, and this was echoed in a few cities, about employers paying or incentivizing their employees to take some kind of financial education course. And we'll talk about that in just a second. And then from the Cohen superintendent, who I mentioned, she had the idea that, recognizing some adults and some parents might be embarrassed what they don't know. And in many cases, their kids might be getting more education at school than they themselves did. So if we were to have like community fairs or kind of family events where it takes, you know, there's not the spotlight on what mom or dad or grandma don't know, it's everybody come and, oh, by the way, here's, you know, if you want to check this out later. So I thought that was a very insightful way to address that issue.
You know, Fran, if I can add on to that, I have an institution that is focused on serving the Hispanic community in Northwest Arkansas in a unique way. And what they are telling me and what they've seen is that the younger, the children are bilingual,
Right.
but the parents often are not. And so, especially when it comes to finances, they said it's not uncommon at all for a child to accompany a parent to a bank, which is a great thing for both of them,
Sure.
but that the child is helping conduct the transaction
Mhm.
because they can communicate with the bank employee, and the parent, you know, is struggling with that. But thinking about how that would even leverage just in any, with any demographic, any
Right,
group,
right.
that maybe it's something that the child has been exposed to
And
and the
could-
parent has not.
Right, right. That's, well, I'd like to know more about
Sure.
that, if you don't mind. So that set the stage. All this kind of set the stage for our small group to come back together. And that was Catherine, Abby, Heather, Marcia, and myself. And we really looked at, I mean, of course, we can't be all things to all people right off the, you know, right out of the gate. So what we decided based on all these comments was that two of the prevailing comments we were hearing was the issue of savings. You know, how do we encourage people to not be afraid and not feel like they can't start saving, even if it's just something small. And that small time, you know, small savings over time add up. Especially in Abby, I remember that survey that came out saying that Arkansas ranked 47th out of 50 in states savings and how they're, you know, the state is saving against all the other states. So it's just amazing. And then the other item that came out of all this was the consensus was just making general education information available, hopefully electronically, which introduces the broadband idea, but let people learn at their own pace and in the way that's best for them. And so how do we try to do that? So with that, we came up with 3 ideas that we presented to the group that Heather was talking about. And I'm going to stop talking and let Abby take the floor to talk about one of them, and then we'll talk about the other 2.
Thanks, Fran. And just echoing the excitement that we had the day we were all together, I was a fly on the wall, having the opportunity to listen to the discussion. So specifically to address the savings question that came up, the group discussed and ultimately recommended that for the commission's consideration, an initiative called Saver Life, which interestingly already has a lot of adoption in the state of Arkansas with little to no effort. Essentially, and this is information that, you know, could be shared with the entire group, but Saver Life is an online platform that allows for savings incentives, financial education, and is really targeting that demographic of our state that is on their phone. And interestingly, not necessarily, you know, the older population, although they are on their phones too, and the school age population. It really is getting at that ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, employed population. And so our group vetted this tool, Saver Life, looked at the data of where the geographic distribution is of where there are already Saver Life members. You become a member. And Save Your Life has a special initiative where they partner with the state to launch a campaign to grow awareness of the tool, the opportunity to sign up, and even run some contest and savings incentives to get people to save and grow their savings and become aware. This is, so switching to another hat I have working with the Asset Funders Network, AFN has decided to move forward in putting a proposal in front of one of our foundation members that has invited that proposal to fund a explicit Save Your Life campaign in the state of Arkansas. So if the commission wanted to elevate and partner with this in 2025, there would be a high likelihood that we would be able to fund the incentives and the platform and the outreach and the digital marketing that would go into promoting Save Your Life. So I think this is a direct reflection of what we heard on the 8-city talking tour of what people were talking about, and specifically the demographic of who isn't necessarily getting these messages already with school age and school, etc. That would be a strong gap filler to the entire tools that we're talking about today and strategies. So, Fran, Chris,
I was going to ask you to clarify because of the many hats you wear, when you said we would find a funder, were you referring to AFN?
Yes. So
Okay.
The Asset Funders Network, one of the members that's at the Asset Funders Network table, which is a foundation in Arkansas, and I won't say who just because they, this would have to go before their board. They explicitly invited a proposal. They were so impressed and it fit so well with their mission. They invited a proposal that would fund Save Your Life. I would ideally love to have a couple of the folks at the table funding it so that it's not one foundation's initiative, but rather the whole table's. But if that were to succeed and they would be positive to the proposal, it would be ideal for the proposal to include that the commission was in favor of being a vocal partner in the partnership, but no financial resources on the commission's part would be needed.
So to help promote it and okay.
Abby, remind us what age can set this account up and become a member?
18 and above.
And the funding that AFN would be doing would be like a 12-month, like the funding would be.
They run a 12-month campaign. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the campaign is, from what I understand, Arkansas campaign would include the digital marketing, the prizes, the doubling down, if you will, on growing members of Save Your Life. But the great news is Save Your Life lives on beyond the Arkansas campaign. So once the quote campaign is over, there's still Save Your Life members and people could still sign up for Save Your Life. And there would be no limitations. It just would be that, extra incentives that philanthropy is fueling would only be during a certain period of time during the campaign. And that doesn't mean there couldn't be multiple campaigns, but at least in the beginning, it would be a 12-month campaign. And Chris, if I could share my screen, do I have the ability to do that? I have this map right here.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay, hang on. Let me see. Yeah, okay. Can y'all see this map?
Yeah.
Are y'all able to see that Save Your Life map? Okay, cool.
Yes.
This is with no marketing whatsoever, like no campaign. Interestingly, Arkansas already has almost 6,000 Save Your Lifers. And this is the geographic distribution of them, which I find fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's some statistics. They ran on 37% are a person of color, 82% are female, 72% don't have a college degree. And then you can see here the age breakdown, that the highest age breakdown is 25 to 34 and 45 to 54. And you can also see, and again, I think this is where I sincerely appreciate the work that's happening in the nonprofit sector around financial education, but this tool's focus is really grabbing people in the digital marketing space, in the organic growth. So I say that to say I think there's a place for both.
Abby,
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with Save a Life. So is the app, does it allow that individual to connect it to their bank accounts?
That's right.
Okay.
It gives the choice, just like you can, and it's Plaid and the security. It's interesting because the Asset Funders Network actually, these were where the most questions were, and they have like the triple gold standard of security, but the user has the ability to connect to Venmo or PayPal or their bank account, and that is another thing that was incredibly positive from AFN's point of view, because you may know that AFN promoted Bank On, and we have 26 financial institutions in the state that are part of that. And we want to drive business to the banks that are investing in Arkansas, not away from. And this tool does that too. It gives you the option to connect your bank account or not. So that's up to the user. And it doesn't keep or touch your money. So your money at any point, it's sending you money for incentives, but it's not, you're not depositing any money with Save Our Life. Your money is still where you choose for your money to be. Does that answer it, Patricia?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Just a quick wonder is, I wonder if any of our other state agencies are promoting this. Just my quick YouTube research. It looks like a lot of other states are promoting Save Our Life through their EBT programs. My wonder is if the DHS is doing that as well. I have no idea. Because the question was, how does everybody know about this?
Right.
I just a quick wonder, because it would, to me, it would be a great opportunity to partner.
I love that idea.
Inside.
No, when we asked the question, because again, we were scratching our heads at how does 6,000 people know, and in the age breakdown that we were seeing, and there's not been a campaign in Arkansas, and to my knowledge, Save Our Life as an organization hasn't had a formal partnership with the state. So if it is happening, I'm unaware of it. But I could also go back and ask that.
That's something I think we need to check out, because that's a great idea.
Abby, there was a slide that was like right before or after the breakdown, and it said something about how people know about it. There's a pie chart.
Let me go back and share. Hang on.
I thought that's what my
Social media, word of mouth.
That's what
Oh,
I'm-
right here. Yeah.
was
It's
interested in that.
digital marketing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what were the three categories? Digital marketing.
Digital marketing, 62%. Organic growth is 36%. My glasses need to be stronger. And the nonprofit, the way that people in Arkansas have been learning about it through nonprofit partnership was 1%.
Hey, Abby, this is Chris. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nothing preventing from the banks themselves promoting this feature as well, right?
Oh, right. Absolutely.
But
And there was we have several financial institutions that are part of the steering committee that looked at the tool and ultimately recommended it.
I was like, I'm not hearing it, and I wouldn't necessarily be in that part of it, but we probably, I mean, for whatever it's worth, the associations would be likely familiar with it or have been contacted about it and could certainly add it in part of their marketing materials. That would be very commonplace. And some individual banks might choose to do it on their own, but you wouldn't have a broad awareness of that. So
I'm wondering if there would be benefit if the commission chose to, continue to pursue this. Would there be benefit at perhaps a future meeting asking the Save Our Life people to do a demonstration to show exactly how it works and to be able to answer some of
Who
these?
the audience be?
I mean, if it
For
would be
us?
the commission to see
I was
it,
thinking
or
also the banking industry.
Yeah, I want to call Lori to see if they're working with them already and if that's getting the word out there.
I mean, we could set up a separate meeting, or we could have it incorporated into one of our future financial ed meetings. I just didn't know how people wanted to pursue that, or set up just like we did with the others, a small group, and then let us come make a recommendation.
If the commission wanted a demo, I'm sure that Save Our Life would be more than happy to do that.
Anybody want to chime in?
Thanks, Abby.
I am, yeah, I'm definitely interested in learning more.
This sounds pressworthy.
Big Bird?
It sounds pressworthy.
Yeah.
If we did this as a state, like we could promote it
Yeah.
all the way.
Mhm. So just, I don't
At our
know,
next meeting?
do you want to do we need to vote on that, or I don't know?
I mean, ultimately, if we meet with them and we hear more about it and get more questions answered, then ultimately just making the decision to support them, partner them, I mean, what, yeah,
Have it be
Yeah.
part of our,
repertoire.
I think the ask is if the commission, and we have two more to unpack, right? Two more opportunities, but with the recommendations that came from the talking tour, if this is a strategy the commission feels is a positive strategy that you all would want to lend your name and credibility to, I think it is, some sort of just partnership letter between the commission and the Asset Funders Network, the Arkansas Asset Funders Network, that says we would be willing to lend name credibility, add this to talking points and partner in any way that we can. It could be quite generic, and then we figure out how we actually do that in earnest moving forward. And then the funding that I'm talking about, the application would be submitted in January of 2025. So I would hope that by Q1 of next year, we would know if we're formally moving forward, and we could roll something out, in the second quarter of 2025 to actively start promoting and come up with some tangible and specific ways that, this can get added to various talking points and all the different ways and departments and things that we could do to actively lift this up especially during the campaign period.
So has anybody set up an account? I'm trying to set one up. You have set one up? Okay.
I would almost love to be able to, and I know it's voluntary, but I'd love to start putting asterisks and say, please do not put your money in Venmo or PayPal. Please find an institution, because your money is not safe, it's not protected. But if it's voluntary, I'll hold back and not mandate that that's part of the marketing, but we can help direct people that way.
So who said it? Heather, you have set up an account? So what's your takeaway?
I mean, I think it's a win-win personally. I think it's easy to navigate and connect it to your savings account.
It's kind of a whole community, isn't it? I mean, it's like as much or as little as you want to make it.
Right, yeah, absolutely. With Arkansas being on the bottom in terms of savings, it's kind of like, in a lot of the towns and folks that we visited with, just the thought of even being able to save $10 a paycheck is a lot for people. There's a lot of people that just can't even think about saving because they're trying to, pay their electric bill and put food on the table. And so just finding small ways to just put back 5 or 10 here, skip the take out food one night and put that money into savings, just little incentives that it gives you, and it may award your account with $1 for something or, 50 cents, but every little bit helps. And then over time, when you're a person that has struggled with it and then you see that building, it's very encouraging. So I think this would help a lot of people.
And I do remember seeing some statistic that over like a 6-month period, the average Save Our Life saver had accumulated, was it $400?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I didn't mention, but part of what got the funders really excited too was the research and the information about what types of incentives and barriers and the data that comes from this, that is aggregate, so it's not specifically on a particular person, but helps funders understand how we could do a better job of promoting, and that could also be very helpful for the financial institutions that are part of our Bank On initiative. And this, and I should have said this too, but this would also be very much incorporated into the Bank On initiative.
It's like a partner. You've got the bank, the banking and savings. So
yeah, because we have 26 banks that are already very actively part of Bank On. So, Fran, do we need are we unpacking all three of these and then talking about them collectively? Or is the commission making a recommendation for each one?
I think we'll make a recommendation for each of the three. I mean, our small group is making a recommendation on 2 of the 3. So, and then we'll see what folks want to do.
Do we want to move to the next one?
Yeah, unless there are any
Next
other
2,
questions.
And then we'll have the recommendations. Are there any other questions? Sam, one of the problems is that whenever this commission was established, there was no funding for it. So we're having to deal, which is not bad. I think I like this model. There are people out there, there are companies out there that see this as a need in their business and in their community, that are willing to put up money to help promote activity that increases the knowledge in this area. So, and it's interesting how these things start falling into place like they've done in the last month or 2. These things have just sort of have evolved and come to us that are we just fit hand in glove. And I'm really I'm very excited about where we're going. So let's talk about the next one. Okay. and the next 2, and then what we want to do going forward. Let me also want to make, I need to make a couple things I forgot to do.
Sure.
We did serve notice to the press, so
yes.
I noticed the press isn't here. We also have a guest with us today, Dr. Placco, who is a candidate for treasurer of the state of Arkansas in about a month from now, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up soon. He's an old friend. We've had a lot of business together over the years, and he's also the governor's economic advisory council. And so I've known him a long time, and economics is his profession for sure. And macro, pretty much, isn't it?
Macro, but I teach micro, banking, whatever.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. Okay.
Okay. So moving on to the second initiative, and we alluded to this, the idea of the employer helping incentivize employees to take some kind of financial literacy course, or, and this actually came out of the idea that in some of the cities we were visiting, certain employees, and they tended to be banks, if I'm not mistaken, would actually pay their employees to enroll in a Dave Ramsey course. Now, I mean, it say what you want, but it hit the right notes. I mean, Dave Ramsey was very recognized, or is very recognized in a lot of these communities. The employer got the benefit of, helping their employees better themselves and their lives and their family life. And so this idea of, okay, well, if there would be a way, I mean, obviously not every employer can pay $500, for their employees to do these courses. But if there was a way to help the employer have access to money to incentivize the employees, what would that look like? And so one of the ideas that we came up with and ran by the group that, that small group that we invited back was, what if there was a grant that was funded by, with the commission being a 501c3, we would, seek grants to support employers who wanted to apply to this grant to then turn around and maybe pay $20. I mean, it would be something that Joe's Hardware could apply for, as well as, some of the larger employers. Now, we didn't get it. In fact, one of there's so many legal issues. I think the committee, and Heather, you helped me out here. I think the gist of it was, it's a good idea, but what does the grant look like? Who's the board? Who are the decision makers? Because we don't want to, and I know Abby, you mentioned this, we don't want to have any favoritism, or what does the selection process look like? So, but it still is an idea that we thought had merit, but maybe we're not there yet, and what course, would they be taking? And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But do you have anything to add to the
only
grant?
thing that I will just say about it is that in many of the communities, it was talked about that, the kids seem to be getting some good foundational education through the school system in Economics, Arkansas. But there seems to be a large gap, where you have a generation of working people out here who never got that when they were in school, or they never got that basic foundation of financial literacy. And so what would that look like if we could come alongside and provide some kind of resource? And one of the business owners said, look, I think it's a great idea, and I would love to offer something to my employees, but they're busy, that what's going to incentivize them to want to participate, and there was a couple of legislators who attended some of the meetings, and they said, well, perhaps we could look at legislation, we could find some kind of tax, benefit or something for employees to take advantage of. And then this idea of a grant through the AFEC, that could be an option. But again, we're not asking you to make a decision on that today, because there's still so much that we need to research on and figure out kind of a proposal to bring back to you, to kind of lay that out. But it's something we wanted you to just have that in your head and be thinking about it for our next meeting, because I think there's some benefit to it. And there's some real science out there that indicates that when employees are struggling financially, their productivity goes down, their marriage is in danger. I mean, it affects so many aspects of their lives. So if we could provide some kind of tool that would help them in some way, then we could maybe move that needle. So again, it was one of the ideas. We wanted to go ahead and tell you about it, but obviously we're not right at the stage yet to ask you to vote on it. So.
Any thoughts on that idea?
It's very interesting. My husband went through that course through our church. He helped lead a group
The Dave Ramsey?
And he led the group, and we have not a large congregation, but I would say there was maybe, to your point, Heather, there was probably only about 10 adults, and ranging, I'd say, from early 40s to 75 range. There was only about 10 adults. I don't know. I worry about there's maybe a lot of interest, but the actual participation, I worry about that a little bit, but the grant may help facilitate that. The only thing that came to mind when you were talking about the grants, I certainly don't want to dissuade any large company from being a part of it, but I would really like, if we do that, to really focus on small to medium sized business.
And that's what we even talked about, what if, like, Acme Brick who employs 500 people.
Yeah.
Well, what if they were in a position to put money into the grant,
Sure, sure.
but then do we need, that they wouldn't be eligible to turn around and have their employee, I mean, so there's so many layers of what we would have to put in place.
Because I think in some of the communities you listed, if you heard it in those communities are not represented by many larger
Right,
corporations.
and that's who.
So I
that might
think
be-
the great need and the great benefit could be held at more of a community level and a
Mhm.
small,
Yeah.
small
My,
mom and
my
pop.
feeling is if you have a large corporation and they want to maybe give us a donation towards the grant, they're gonna be able to afford
That's what
to
I'm thinking.
incentivize their employees
Without
themselves.
going
You know,
through
so
this.
they could still
Yeah.
benefit from the curriculum,
Right.
but wouldn't necessarily even need the grant money.
But set an application threshold of
Yeah.
where
Yes.
you have fewer than X amount of employees and
Mhm.
just to help encourage the people that maybe want and need it.
Yeah.
Or have the least
Mhm.
access.
I think when you make that application, because it'd be competitive, you can set the weights based on size, geographic, percentage of employees that participate. I
Right,
think you could even put a match, maybe it's a 75-25, like make the company have some skin in the game. So if
There
they're
you
gonna do it, like we'll cover 75% if you do 25, that
Oh,
would
I
make
like
their
that.
grant more
Yeah,
competitive. 'Cause I just struggle giving away free incentives. It's just
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
But
yeah.
when people have some skin in the game, you
Yeah.
get a better behavior.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just would say consider something like that.
That's good.
very good. Well,
Next,
then we'll move on to the last one. Thank you all for being, I know we're kind of doing a lot of information here, but
it's a long summer.
it's been a long summer, so. Okay, here's where I think Chris is going to help me. The last one, is addressing the issue of, personal financial education.
Curriculum.
And presenting a curriculum to help, people, with their personal finances in a very, in a way, like I said, that is on their pace and at their level. And there is a company called Enrich. Some of you, they also have a sister company, iGrad. But Enrich is a national company that came to my attention or to our attention through a grant that some of you may have heard us talk about NAST. I don't know, the National Association of State Treasurers Association. And they have a financial arm in that organization that secured a grant from Wells Fargo to develop a curriculum or a platform and allow all the states that participate in NASP, which is like, I think almost all the states, a chance to kind of do a free test drive, if you will, of this platform. And at the time, we were going through some of our turmoil with Treasurer Lowry, and the time wasn't right for us to consider really looking at this as a state treasury office. Well, then fast forward to where we are now as a commission, and also having gone through these exercises of talking to all these cities, the idea kept coming back to what if there was a platform? And so our partners in Maine, so that, see where it says FAME, FAME, that's Financial Authority of Maine. So there are a number of states, in fact, I have them written down: Nebraska, Massachusetts, Maine, Kentucky, New Hampshire, Tennessee, Illinois, Michigan, and Minnesota, just to name a few, who have adopted and have funding for this platform. I've asked the Maine people if I could have a fake login so we could show you today what it looks like. So I'm going to go through rather quickly and you'll see the homepage here in just a second, but when you log in, so we would have ours where there says FAME, ours would, whatever
Whatever we want.
whatever fun name we came up with. So some,
What'd you say?
Fair.
fair. FARE, yeah, fair. So you would, sign in, this is what the sign-in page, you just, pretty standard stuff. So Chris actually did this. So, and the only reason I'm showing this to you is because this doesn't live on the page. This is the enrollment process. So once you've gone through this series of questions, they're gone. So you get welcomed, they are kind of giving you an overview. Okay, we're going to start with the financial checkup, then we're going to look at what your financial stress score is, understand how you spend money, and then we're going to help you stay on track. So that's the overview. And then here begins the series of questions. Before we get started, what year were you born in? I'm embarrassed to say Chris was born in 1987. I'm just kidding.
I have to scroll a little bit now.
Yeah.
Go punch in.
So how often have you been preoccupied? So you'll see it's like a scale, from, and I know I can't see that, but it's like from never to all the time. So obviously, as you go through and answer these questions, depending upon how you answer them, the algorithm is getting a sense of what your primary concerns are when it comes to your finances. How often have you avoided thinking about your finances? How do you, have you, focused on the positives? Then we get into what things stress you out the most. And again, forgive me, how do I make
Do
this
you want me to
work?
make a figure?
Yes, please. Yeah. Oh, yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. So you would just click, all that applied. And so we just picked a few for the sake of the exercise. Are you currently employed? Are you in need of a new job? Yes, no, not sure. So if you look, and we just pulled a few screen grabs, you have a sense of how far you're in to the assessment process. So I think here, at this point, we had about 2 minutes left. And as you answer your questions, they have these little pop-ups that say, oh, 50% of respondents agreed with you, or 70% of people, felt the same way you did. So you really kind of start to get this community feel on your answers. Do any parents, children, rely on you for financial support? And then we get into some of the college questions. What types of debt do you have? Select all that apply. Are you basically living paycheck month to month, or are you able to save money? Do you know what your credit score is? What goals do you have after paying your monthly bills? Are you currently on track? So it's a pretty thorough, but this is a one-time thing.
I have to say, since I filled it out, it was minimally invasive. It never asked for any specific numbers. And had it not been for doing all the screenshots, it probably would have taken me 4, maybe 5 minutes to go through that.
Yeah. So at the very end, there's a chat where you, an AI, and we'll see where that comes into play here in just a second. But if you have some additional questions, so we typed in, need help budgeting towards saving for my children while also taking care of my elderly parents. So once you go through that, do I click here, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, so then your page is set up. So now we've gone back, and now Chris is all set up. So I'm just going to walk you through some of the highlights, but honestly, you could spend a lot of time on this page. So you see over here, Chris is, and they give you experience points. So like, this is your current level, improve your financial literacy, reach your goals by, participating in other things on the platform. They give you kind of a priority. So like, there's some daily tasks of things to do, or this monthly. So as you do things, this score goes up. Then if you remember the questions that we were just asked, it has pre-populated with kind of some of their modules that address some of the issues that you identified as your stressors, and 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever the read time is going to be. However, if you click on see all, you have obviously access to everything that is on this page. So, but what I want to show you is the recommendations by type. So some people prefer to read articles. Some people need, hands-on tools. So you could get into, they'll walk you through setting up an emergency fund. Your money personality. So this is another similar quiz, but it really gets into kind of identifying what type of spender you are. So that will then issue another set of tools to help you. Retirement analyzer, where are you on track? So they help you with that. So over here, the Outlook. So this is your dashboard over here, and this kind of tells you, okay, your score is about 21 on a scale, and how you compare to others, what your score means.
So it's very tailored. That's the one takeaway.
Yes.
That this is very tailored to the person, the individual. And I think the beauty of this program is that we would be able to tailor it to Arkansas. So if we have something specific that's going on in Arkansas, across the state that might incentivize people, some new, tax credit or, anything that we could promote it through this page, through this, and people, we could spread, that information through this, and tailoring it to our state and then to each individual, I think is a key, because there's many of these kinds of platforms out there that people can sign up for free. But I think having the ability to tailor one to us and to our needs within our state is a key to keeping people interested in it, and making people want to use it instead of something else.
And it too, one of the things we liked about this idea was that you don't see any pop-up you just got a message, but you don't see pop-up ads. I think somewhere I was kind of going down the rabbit hole, and there was I think on the page where we talked about, here it was. So here's the AI feature. Remember that question we had? They have a little chat bot named Ernie. So, Chris had populated a question in there about taking care of, his kids and his parents at the same time. So you do have the ability, if you so choose, to participate in kind of an AI experience. But I also like under quick links. So now this is geared toward Maine, but we'd be able to populate scholarships, to help people understand what scholarships are available and what the deadline is.
Hey, Fran.
Yes, sir.
Abby had a couple of questions. She was.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. A reminder of the age range that can use the tool or tools, and if there's an ability to track what you review, pre-test, post-test, et cetera, for the user.
Yes.
I know I can answer the second part of the question. Some of the courses do offer like a certification of completion. As far as that age group,
I believe you have to be 18 for this one, because the same company also has iGrad, which is designed for, or maybe I have that backwards. I don't know. I'm guessing it's 18. So again, we would have to get confirmation on that. But you can tell just by this is not for young kids. I mean, these aren't.
Do they have a version for younger students?
I know there's other comparable programs out there for younger students. I know EverFi is a big player in schools. Marcia, you could probably help me out with some of the other tools.
It's not very in depth. I will say, Secretary, that like we've worked with the Federal Reserve System, who has a great platform called Econ Lowdown, but because of some of the changes in data privacy, like I think they're moving away from that.
It's just a whole different ballgame. when you
Yeah.
don't-
I don't know. What do you think? So what would be the price to make this Arkansas specific?
So it would require, and this is where we would need to seek some funding to make this happen. I did get a preliminary, you recall I mentioned NAS, the National Association. So I talked to the person who worked directly with Enrich just to get a very, preliminary idea of what we would be looking at. And she said incidentally that they vetted 8 companies. So that this is the one that they landed on, and they work with they work like with Coca-Cola and a lot of employers. But her enrollee, she said on average, it's $1.50 per enrollee. So in first year, the states that have rolled this out, and depending on how they've rolled it out, I mean, you've got states like Illinois that are making it, not mandatory, but like for their state employees. I mean, there are a lot of different ideations of how iterations. I knew it was in there somewhere. So, we'd be looking, I'm thinking is more of a general, statewide, but they said between 50 and 500, that you get enrollees for the first year. So at the top of the meeting, the treasurer, mentioned there have been some people who are starting to reach out to us and say, we want to help, just let us know how to help. And, it's quite possible that we could, and much like we were talking about doing with Saver Life, is if you all were interested, I could get more specific Arkansas information. I could talk to the people at Enrich and see what that would look like, and then make the determination if we wanted to seek some funding for making this available. Because not only is it something that could go in the libraries, it would be accessible to anybody around the state who has a computer. And when we presented this idea to the teachers that were at that small group that we had, the light bulbs just started going off, and they were talking about how there could even be a pathway, since we would have the flexibility of working with the company to create certain modules. Could there possibly be a certification module, a module that awards a certificate for student and personal finance? So, I mean, it's one of those where there were just some, and then going back to the grant idea, let's say, in 2 years, we decide to pursue that. Well, on a platform like this, we could have, if you're here because of your employer, click here, and then it would be whatever has been designed for them. So, but those things don't have to happen for this to still be a way to address a problem that, we heard out in the communities, obviously. So I think, unless you all have any specific questions about Enrich, I think, we've put in front of you the 3, the grant, Enrich, and Saver Life, and just wanted a sense of what you would like to pursue, or would like us to pursue for you.
Any comments?
Fran, does it have the ability to do middle school, high school?
I don't know. Like I said, I know they have a separate company called iGrad that is specific to, I believe, high school and college age students, because it gets into, how to understand your first paycheck. And, so it's really geared towards those who are just getting started. Whereas you can tell this is, geared a little more toward,
Could we
Yeah.
ask?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd love to know because it would be nice to have some tools and strategies that have some consistency.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, much like your Saver Life, we would get reports each month that are not, not personal information, but we would see, oh, wow, 80% of our enrollees studied the module on, saving for emergency situations or looked up scholarships. So we would get all those analytics on a monthly basis. So again, to help us understand, wow, maybe we, as a state need to address these things better. Or so, I mean, there's a learning component as well.
And it sounds like a platform that can be built upon. We can start it at one level and then continue to add.
And that's how they would want you to design it, because there would have to be a reason to invite people to keep coming back. And so if you're an enrollee, anytime like during, I think it was like during College Savings Month, they pushed out a 529 module to explain how 529s are different ways you can save for college education. So enrollees get an email every time there's something new that's there for them to take a look at. And it comes with not financial incentives, but there's a way to reward yourself for completing this module. So they kind of get you to.
Yeah, and it's visually
It has
appealing.
It has visual, it has audio, it has, so however you learn best, they have those options. And again, I don't work for the company. I've just poked around a lot, but would be happy to try to set something up if you all are interested.
I think when we're considering any of these, one of the things that we've got to consider is how often do they refresh their content? Because, if they're, I mean, it looks great. Looks like there's a lot of great tools out there and a lot of great information, but if it's stagnant and you work, you may have a high adoption rate early on, but then they've worked through everything they're interested in and then they abandon it. So.
And I think that's where, I would imagine where their fees there, as I understand it, you have to, when we would be negotiating with the company on what our costs would look like, you both agree to like projections. Okay, the universe of Arkansas is, how many millions of people. And then of those, we think X amount, will enroll. And so that's the starting point for their pricing. And then I think you get into more layers of customization with, paying a little bit more. So again, I could find all that information out, but I had the exact same thought. Once you've been there, what's the motivation to keep coming back?
Right.
And we'd really like to just hear, your feedback on this, if you think this is good enough thing for us to pursue, and at least, open the door to, starting the discussions. And that's kind of where we are.
And we would have a link to it. If we adopted it, we would link it to our page as well.
Yeah, all this would be available. So when you mentioned if we were to do Saver Life, having a press conference or making it statewide, we would have to build into it, taking the show on the road, not only going back to those 8, but I see us, directing people to the Financial Education Commission website
Exactly.
to find, a link for Saver Life.
Yes.
To find, and then I even think we could set up like a 3-minute video on how to enroll. I mean, we could do little webinars or something.
So what I'm thinking is Steve, to your point, if it's a company that we feel like we have good faith and confidence that they're going to be around for a long time, that they're going to continue to build off this. It's going to cost something, but if we can figure out the funding, it's still a low cost way for us to be a part of the solution, to put the information out there, because we couldn't ever do anything like this on our own.
No.
And so, and if it's a company that, we feel like is in this for the long haul, I see no reason why we wouldn't want to explore connecting with them.
I agree. I think it's all aligned with your strategy. I think all 3 of the initiatives
Yeah.
are aligned with your strategy.
Yeah, I'm thinking is this stuff that we want to hang off of our website.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not just the commission, but the
Yes.
committee, and you're right there as well. So, the last thing that we want to do is put something out there that we're not gonna have faith and confidence in long term.
And that's
because
why.
we're facing the same problems, at the business level as, we're all recognizing at the state level. How do we get more education out there and keep it, fresh and get people active?
And I think if, in terms of, the legislature, keeping them interested in what we're doing. I mean, the folks who set this commission up in the first place are gonna be very excited to see these initiatives coming out of this commission, and hopefully they would, keep some good things going and in the budget for us.
Yeah. Put a little money behind it.
That's a very low cost. We just built a whole new database, and it's extremely, that really is the cost. And that's very minimal.
And I'm like the treasurer, I think once we have some projects to put out there, I think, I don't want to be naive here, but I think all we have to do is ask. There are people willing to help
Right.
fund, no, not infinite, but this is what is in so many people's wheelhouse.
Education is something that's, I was the chairman of a foundation several years ago, the AT&T Foundation, matter of fact. And that's one of their big
Initiatives.
initiatives is education. And there are a lot of those out there that take this kind of a plan to them. So, Fran, from your perspective, what would you like, what are you expecting from the commission today in terms of the next step?
I think, and you all help me here, I think the recommendation to proceed with 1, 2, or 3, or, whatever, for all 3,
And all 3 will go at different rates. I mean, they'll.
Yeah.
Work together.
I mean, yeah, the reality is that the grant would, take some time. But I mean, listening to what Abby was talking about with Saver Life, I mean, I almost see, we could, if the commission agreed, Saver Life could come out in the middle of, 2025. And then maybe while that's kind of what we're hanging our first hat on, then we come out with, we've had time to develop, enrich, or whatever platform I mean, obviously there are others out there, but I mean, I see kind of a steady stream of reasons to keep us out there. And then after we've developed some credibility, then maybe in a year or two, if the grant or anything else, I mean, those were just the 3 initial ideas. So it would be a recommendation on what the commission would like us to take the next step in researching.
I'll just say, based on your outreach, this is what you heard from the field. And all 3 of these recommendations came about because you got direct feedback from the people that are asking for it. To me, it makes sense to pursue all 3 of them. I think they're worthwhile strategies that are aligned with what our stakeholders are saying they need.
If you'll make that motion, I'll
I'll
second.
make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Okay, good. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good.
You all are gonna be very, very big. Not that you're not already, but.
And honestly, the grant, it will probably take every bit of 2 or 3 years to get this maybe figured out, so.
But the Saber.
Yeah. So Saver Life is,
Something that can move pretty quick.
I think so too, and this one could too, at the right time.
Well, and this one is out there and it's being used. We just have to see what it's gonna take to get it to what we need in
Yeah,
Arkansas.
customize it.
I tend, obviously there's a desperate need on the adult side, but also on the adults, or young adults, or high school students. And so I think we can be very helpful to the school system, providing certification. I think that's something that's required now, isn't it?
Financial issues and graduation.
Yeah. And we can help, we
this
can
might supplement.
that, what y'all are doing there.
So the time frame is, we think it would take till mid 2025 to do the Saber Line? Or it
Well-
can move faster?
Abby, I think she was saying, do you want to repeat kind of the timeline you were talking about for the funding?
Yeah, we have another Arkansas Asset Funders meeting, actually two more, one in late October. So if the commission, is favorable, I'll bring that back to them and say that the commission would be willing for us to mention that in the application. The application for funding would be January of 2025 that it's submitted. So I don't know what the timeline is of the foundation to actually approve the dollars. I'm assuming Q1 of 2025, which would give us, some runway to get a contract in place with Saver Life and co-design a campaign. I'd love to have someone from the commission be a liaison. I don't know if that's Chris or Fran or another committee member that might want to be part of that co-designing, just to add voice and expertise. And then hopefully that would then determine the actual timeline of the campaign, which I don't think would begin before Q2 of 2025.
So April's financial literacy month, that would be good. Or
That would be good. Let's shoot for that.
Did you have any other business to bring?
No, sir. The only other comment I was going to make is, with the new administration coming, we don't have a next meeting. We're going to wait and, allow some time for the new person to get his feet wet.
Continue.
We'll continue to do this, but as far as coming back together as a commission, it would probably be March.
We don't expect to do it between now and the end of the year,
No.
but if we do, we can always call it.
Yeah, if there's something that comes up, then I'll definitely reach out to you all and see if we can have a special, even if it's, virtual.
I was gonna say, if you have progress to report or action for us to agree on to move one of these forward, let's do it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I
Wonderful.
certainly would rather do that.
Sure,
if possible.
instead of waiting, yes. And odds are it will. I mean, will probably, I'll probably go ahead and reach out to the folks at Enrich and get some information.
Here, seeing no further
Oh,
business.
I do have one quick item to share.
What?
Good news.
What?
She
So,
brought you a t-shirt.
no.
Is there any other business to come forward?
So.
I actually love the t-shirt. Let me just say, I think it's Def Leppard. I'm not 100% sure,
It is,
but
Abby.
okay,
It's-
I caught
it's-
that.
It's concert day in our office, so I'm trying to be supportive.
You're doing
But within the last week, at the security department, we've met with one of our national groups. And just talking about financial literacy, and quite frankly, we're really down into the weeds of the fraud and the fraud epidemic and what's happening with financial fraud. And we were talking about, they have an opportunity we were unaware of, to do, to sponsor and support us in doing an outreach program. And so investing a little bit more about that, they're going to get back with us in the next month or two, but investing with them on that, I asked and thought that I will want to try to find a way to let the commission, if nothing else, have our logo a part of it. It won't be an ask for money or anything of that, or sponsorship or time, but to plug that into the AFCE as a way to highlight and support the group. And so, absolutely. So more to come. We're just in the early planning stages of it, but it's going to target. Their ask was, let's find something in the state to target senior citizens around fraud and financial fraud, and I wholly support that because there's so much of that going around this day and age. So anyway, certainly.
Good. Jay?
Just a question for maybe some of the historians. It's a wonder, it's not a business ask, but I think most of us are aware there's a legislative session coming up in January. So pulling a lot of data and research as we're gearing up to
I'll
hit
be
the
on
ground
road somewhere.
You'll be on standby. I know we have the College 529 plan, which because I've been doing a lot of research in a lot of other states and a lot of different policy initiatives, which I think is wonderful for families and parents. Has this state ever had or thought about doing a prepaid plan? Is there any history there? Because there's about a dozen other states that do a prepaid plan. If you don't know what it is where a family can lock in today's tuition rates, cost of going to college. They pay into that fund, and then when they graduate, the fund would cover the difference if it goes up. So they're creating their own savings plan, but they're locking in today's tuition and rates.
Yeah, so historically, 529 started back in, I believe, technically the framework started back in like the late 80s, early 90s. And a lot of states launched as a prepaid plan. And like you said, it locked in that particular state's tuition rates. They did a mean average of it, locked that in. And then eventually those states launched another plan outside of the prepaid. Like
it's almost in parallel.
Yes, they are in parallel. And so some states offer a prepaid plan and then a plan like we have that's not the prepaid, and also the advisor plan. So by the time Arkansas launched their plan, we didn't opt for the prepaid because, and spitballing here, I wasn't around back then, but the prepaid plan, it would lock, I believe it locks the beneficiary into, the state's college offerings because.
Well, it depends how you set it up. So what I've seen in most other states is what they pay into the prepaid is their money. If they choose to go out of state, they just choose to go out of state. They're not gaining any interest on their money because they paid into what they thought the cost was going to be. And if they choose to go to private, they would only get to whatever they had, and then they would be stuck on the difference. But they could, like, say I wanted to go to UA 4-year, full dorm, full meals. Let's say that's $100,000 today. I can lock in today. Like, it's a lot of times you see it's like grandparents are paying for their kid. They put in their payment plan. The kid's just born. By the time they turn 18, they pay their $1,000 a month, whatever. And then when that kid goes to school, their tuition's paid for. If it costs $130,000 to execute that plan, the investment fund covers the difference with the university. If the parent chooses to say, I want to punt and go to Michigan, that they could withdraw that money from their account, but they only get what they paid for.
Yeah, I mean, I can, depending on what your specific ask is, I'd be more
Well,
than
I
happy.
don't think there's an answer because this would be a lot of work, but I have a memo with the research if you want to see it. I'm just curious if there's ever been that conversation or if there's a desire, because it's two different plans. You know what I mean? It's two different worlds. The 529 still exists, but is there an appetite or desire to establish a state prepaid? And they have different rates. Like if you only want to pay for a 2-year AS degree or a college degree, the parents choose which plan they want to pay for, and that's what they would lock in.
Does the state have any skin in the game on that?
Some states have done loans to the prepaid program they have to repay back. Some have gotten startup money from the state to say, like, you need $1 million, right? Like to start this fund to get this up and running, and then maybe you need to collect revenue for so many years.
But hopefully the interest or the gain.
If you invest it properly, it should cover the cost of the difference.
In the 8 years I've been here, there hasn't been an appetite expressed to add a prepaid, but that is an interesting thought to consider.
Very interesting.
May I say, so I was here then when we brought in the 529. Merrill Lynch and Dennis Kearns pitched it. The treasurer, I was working for Governor Huckabee. And it was, the decision was made to give more flexibility if people want to go to private college or how they want to use the money, and they just stay at the time.
No, and that's what I'm saying. But you can set it up. Say, basically, you're saying, is my 529 going to keep up with tuition increase? Or do I pay for, or is tuition increase going to stay flat even if I lock in at today's rate?
Yeah,
Like you're basically choosing which path you want to go down. But a lot of families will probably pay for both. I don't know.
Right, the
Yeah.
program had only been around about 5 or
It's
6
very
years.
interesting, though.
Morningstar was having
And I know, when Fran and I are out there engaging with the community on the 529 programs, we tell the families, like, if you can lock in all the money you would need for a 4-year degree into a 529, great, there's benefits, but it's really just about saving what you can towards that. Don't look at the whole price tag. Just save what you can because $1 saved is $1 less borrow, $1 less interest. They gotta pay.
Oh, if you've done the pre-plan though, and you look at some of the costs today, you would really have.
If you locked in 18
Yeah.
months ago,
Oh my
so
gosh.
that's the question. I mean, like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of states offer it. I don't know.
That's very interesting.
So is the money in a prepaid plan also much like 529? You have the option of an investment portfolio so it can grow?
Well,
or-
the agency that oversees it would be investing as a
Okay.
portfolio. The parent's not getting invested. They're getting what they paid into the plan.
Right.
They're gambling on whether or not tuition's gonna go up or stay
Yeah.
flat or go down. Because if tuition goes down, then they overpay.
Yeah.
I mean,
That'll
maybe it
happen.
does go down. I wouldn't think that that's likely, but it could happen in theory. You may be overpaying if you lock in today's rates 20 years from now. I don't know.
Higher education had gone up over time, hasn't it?
Wow. So I'd say one more thing. Thank you for your great service, because this will be our last time we're all together.
I appreciate that. I've enjoyed, this is a great, committee and, we've made some, in the short period of time I've been here, I think we made some great decisions, right? So, and I love working with y'all. I appreciate y'all's involvement. I have the same feeling of this committee as I do like the APERS and teacher retirement. And those are really important things. And education has always been something from my earliest days, remembering my mother talking about getting an education, college, in my case, a college education. And it didn't, and so I'm involved in, still involved in private college, in Christian College in Missouri, where I'm on the board of it. I enjoy that. I'm active with UAM also, so I enjoy this sort of thing. I think the more we can help our citizens, the better off we'll all be collectively. So thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Want to call the?
The meeting is now adjourned.
But I think you have an event to be at. I'll do the conference.
Yeah.
It's an important, maybe we'll go to.
It's the, next quarter,